वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की, श्रीमद सतगुरु सरकार की, लाडली लाल की जय। जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे। Today, the subject of discussion is the importance, the significance of this human life. So if you could all please pay attention, be attentive. Only then will you be able to grasp what is being said, the philosophy that is being, that will be depicted. The scriptures tell us that amongst the 8.4 million species of life, it is only humans who have been given the right, the freedom, and the power to gain the knowledge of God. No other living creature has the right to know God. As the Garud Puran states, Namanusham vinanyatra tattva jnanam tu labhyate. Except for humans, it is not possible for any other living creature to know God. Therefore, the Vedas tell us, Uttishtat jagrat parapya varan nibodhat. O humans, awaken, arise, and seek the holy association of saints, so that through them you may attain divine knowledge, spiritual knowledge. And what knowledge are the Vedas referring to? What knowledge are the saints giving us? The Bhagavad states, Nirdehamadhyam sulabham sudurlabham plamam sukalpam karnadharam mayanugulena nabhasvateritam puman bhavabhim nataret atmaha. 11th canto, 20th chapter, 17th verse. The Bhagavad states that you have been provided the human body as the most competent vessel, the most competent vehicle, which is being propelled, which is being moved, pushed forward by the grace of God, and a worthy guide in the form of a guru, a saint. And you have the opportunity to seek the association of a worthy guide. Now, in spite of being blessed with these three gifts, the Bhagavad tells us that he who does not make an attempt to cross the ocean of Maya, this material existence, he is truly a slayer of his very own soul. And Tulsidas Ji has said the exact same thing in the Ramayana. Naratanu bhav varidhi kahu bero sanamukh marut anugraha mero karanadhar sadguru dridh pava dridh nava durlabh saj sahaj kari pava. Tulsidas Ji says the same thing. He says that this human body, this human form, is a natural ship. It's a veritable raft, a ship to take one across the ocean of Maya. And God's grace is the favorable wind. And an expert guide, an expert instructor is the helmsman, is the driver to steer this mighty ship in the right direction. And though this combination is very difficult to attain, it has easily been made available to us, to all humans. Adi Shankaracharya, the first original, authentic Jagat Guru, Universal Master, he also states in Vivek Chudamani, Durlabham Trayamevaita Daivanugrahakarakam Manusyatvam Mukshutvam Mahapurusha Sambhava. Tells us being born a human, having the desire to reach God, and meeting the true saint in the form of a guru are the three most difficult things to attain. But even out of these three, the very first one, attaining the human form, the human body, is the most important. Why? Because it is only after acquiring birth as a human that we can benefit from saintly association and we can develop, we can acquire a hunger for God. He further tells us, he further states, beautiful verse, Manuj dehamimam bhuvidurlabham samadhigamya surairapi vanchitam vishayalam patitam apahaya vai bhajat re manujaha kamalapati. He says that you have been blessed with the rarest birth, the human birth. So instead of wasting precious moments of life in pursuit of mundane pleasures, which are temporary and limited, make a sincere effort to reach God. The scriptures are full of quotations emphasizing the importance, the immense significance of this human body. I have just quoted Adi Shankaracharya, the first authentic Jagat Guru, Universal Master, and now I will quote the fifth original Jagat Guru, the current Jagat Guru of this age, also my spiritual master, Jagat Guru Sri Kripaluji Maharaj. He has also highly praised the virtues of the human birth in his numerous writings. In his scripture, Premras Madira, which is a collection of 1008 devotional poems, Shri Maharaj writes, Milat nahi nar tanu barambar, milat nahi kabhu kakaru karuna de sansar milat nahi nar tanu barambar, उल्टो टांगी बांधी समझाए हो जग सार मिलत नहीं नर तन बारंबार दीन ज्ञान जब कीन प्रतिज्ञा भजी हो नंद कुमार मिलत नहीं नर तन बारंबार भूली गयो सो दशा भई पुनी ज्योर मझार मिलत नहीं नर तन बारंबार यह कृपाल नर तनु सुरदुर्लभ सुमिरु श्याम सरकार मिलत नहीं नर तनु बारंबार. In other words, you will not attain this human form of life again and again. So there must be some mystery concerning this human form, which is still unknown to us. So what is the mystery behind this human body? In the Ramayana, Garuji asks Kalbhushundi 7 questions. Out of all the questions in all of the scriptures, there were picked 7 questions. And even out of these 7, this following question was asked first. Garuji asked, Prathamahi kahu nath mati dhira, sabde durlabh kavan sarira. Tell me, my Lord, which form of life is the most difficult to attain? Durlabh. Kalbhushundi ji answers, Nar tanu sam nahi kabayu dehi, jeev chara char jachat jehi. Kagbushuddhiji answered. He said, there is no form of life superior to the human form, which is desired by all classes of living beings, whether conscious or inert, whether stationary or movable. All living creatures desire this precious human form. So why are humans praised to such an extent by all the saints and scriptures alike, and declared to be the best among all living creatures? Saint Bhartrihari gives us the answer. He says, Jnanam hi tesham adhiko vishesho jnanena hinaah pashubhih samana. He reveals to us that the blessing that places man on a higher plane, on a higher level, is knowledge. Man possesses an exceptional capacity, an essential quality to distinguish between right and wrong. And what happens in the absence of this faculty of discrimination? Pashubhi samana. Saint Bhartrihari says, he begins to behave no better than an animal, not living, merely existing. He becomes unworthy of being called a human. If he fails to use this faculty of discrimination, the mind, the intellect. Bertrand Russell, a British philosopher and a mathematician, has beautifully observed. He says, life devoted only to life is animal, without any real human value, incapable of preserving man permanently from weariness. So it is the power of rational thinking that distinguishes man from other creatures. This is easy to understand. But what is not easy to understand is the superiority of the human body over celestial beings, heavenly beings. Why do heavenly gods desire the human form? Why do they sing glories of the human body? Gayanti deva kilagit kani dhanyastu ye bharat bhumi bhage. Why do heavenly gods desire the human form when the scriptures tell us that heavenly beings are far superior to humans in many respects? And you all know Kamdev, the god of beauty, he excels in beauty. Kubeer is the god of wealth. Indra is the king of heaven. Moreover, the body of a heavenly being, a heavenly god, possesses a number of special qualities. Unlike the human body, it is not made of the 5 gross elements, ether, namely ether, air, fire, water, and earth. No, it is supernatural. It is divine. It is extraordinary. It is so lustrous and fragrant. It is so radiant that even if the most ordinary of these heavenly gods were to come down and stand in front of us, we would not be able to contain their beauty or their fragrance within our material senses. We would immediately fall down and lose consciousness. Such is the extraordinary nature of the body of a heavenly God. And yet, even these heavenly gods desire the human form. Now, you may say, perhaps humans possess superior knowledge than these heavenly gods, but even this is not so. Although we have advanced tremendously in science, in technology, and so on, we boast about our modern space-age technology. But the fact remains that heavenly gods are far superior than us, superior in knowledge than us. They possess mighty weapons such as Agnivan, Vayuvan, weapons that have the ability to kill only the intended victims, leaving all others unharmed. They possess great qualifications. So the fact is that our knowledge places us only above animals, birds, insects, plants, and trees, but certainly not heavenly gods. So now the question is, if knowledge is not, if even knowledge is not the reason for the superiority of the human body, then what is? So one reason is knowledge, but that is not the determining factor for the superiority of the human body. So Tulsidas Ji tells us in the Ramayana, Narak Swarg Apvarg Niseni Jnana Virag Bhakti Sukh Deni. He says that the human life is the best possible means of attaining hell. These words are coming from the same Tulsidas Ji, who also tells us that there's no form of life quite like the human form. Bade bhag manush tanu pava sur durlabh sagranthani gava. But he now tells us that it is precious because it is like the stairway leading to hell. Now you may say, what kind of praise is this? So before you get confused, let me explain to you the logic behind this most curious statement made by Tulsidas Ji. You see, man is the only living creature endowed, blessed with the gift of knowledge. So if this gift is utilized properly, it can lead man to greatness. However, if it is misused, then the consequences can be horrifying, leading man to his downfall. And abusing this greatest gift from God, Gyan Shakti Gyan, gift of knowledge, is the most abominable, the most terrible offense in the eyes of God. And the punishment received, punishment incurred is hell, imprisonment in hell. And since most of us, 99.999% of us, do commit this offense of indulging into sense gratification, bringing the greatest harm to body, mind, and soul, and not paying any attention to the well-being of our soul, paying little attention to our spiritual life. Tulsidas Ji refers to hell first. Next, he refers to those who are desirous of attaining heaven, Swarg. Narak Swarg Apvarg Niseni. If we look up the term Swarg in the dictionary, amongst others, you will find the following definition. Heaven is defined as the dwelling place of God and his angels, or his heaven celestial beings, variously conceived of as the place where the blessed shall live after death. So all religions of the world offer heaven as a reward for our good conduct and orthodox performance of rites and rituals. Most people like to think of their deceased family members as having gone to heaven, as the residents of heaven after death. It is obvious that they have a very positive image of heaven in mind, but let us see if their conception of heaven corresponds to what the Vedas declare to be. What do the Vedas say about heaven? Ishta purtam manyamana varishtam nanyat shreyo vedayante pramudha. नाकस्य पृष्ठे ते सुकृतेन भूत्वेमं लोकं हीनतरं वा विशन्ति. Upanishad 1-10. The Vedas tell us that they are fools who desire and attain heaven, and not ordinary fools, mind you, pramudha, meaning the greatest of fools. Why? You see, we perform virtuous actions. Heaven is a reward offered to us for our virtuous actions. And since our punya or virtuous actions are limited, so is the duration of our stay in heaven. Suppose you may stay 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, or let's say 100,000 years. Think of it this way. Suppose you have deposited $100,000 in the bank. You make a deposit of $100,000, and then you start making monthly withdrawals. So eventually, there will come a time when you will have nothing left in the account. Similarly, think of your punya or virtuous actions as money in the bank, and going to heaven as making withdrawals. Just like the money in the bank, one day our virtuous actions are finished, are exhausted. Then we can no longer stay in heaven. Where do we go then? Heenataram va vishanti. Tavat pramodate swarge yavat punyam samapyate. As the Bhagavad states, 11:10:26. We can no longer stay in heaven. And where do we go? Heenataram va vishanti. To lower forms of life, to lower species of life on earth. We do not attain the human form because we have exhausted all our punya. And thirdly, Tulsidas Ji refers to those who strive, who aim at the attainment of liberation, mukti, moksha. These individuals realize that heavenly rewards, heavenly gains are temporary and limited, and therefore cannot put an end to the endless cycle of birth and death, suffering in the various forms of life. So these individuals, they strive for liberation instead. And even beyond that, finally, fourthly, Tulsidas Ji refers to those rare and extremely intelligent humans, rare humans, who love God unselfishly and aim at the highest, the sweetest nectar of godly bliss, Divyanand, Premanand. That is, God realization through devotion, bhakti. In essence, what Tulsidas is telling us that human beings are capable of attaining whatever they desire, whether it be hell, next is heaven, beyond heaven is liberation, and even far beyond liberation is devotion to God, bhakti. Punyena punyalokam nayati papena papabhagyam eva manushyalokam. Prashnopanishad 3:7. So Tulsidas says that we are free to perform virtuous actions, attain hell, perform evil actions, attain hell, rather virtuous actions, attain heaven, perform evil actions, attain hell, perform a mixture of both good and bad actions, and be born in various forms of life in this world, but not as a human. And there's another type of action, and that is devotion, sadhana bhakti, devotional practice, which liberates us from the bondage of Maya, from the cycle of birth and death. And that is the type of happiness that the soul is searching for. Yovai Bhuma Tat Sukham. Divine bliss, godly happiness is such that it is eternal, ever existing, infinite, immeasurable, unlimited, and not only that, it is everlasting. So getting back to our subject, so we have been given the freedom to perform appropriate actions and attain the desired goal, whatever it may be. Now you may ask, what about the other forms of life? There are 8.4 million species of life on Earth. Do all these species have the freedom to perform actions? No. As I mentioned before, it is only humans who have been given the freedom to perform action, to do karma, and reap the fruits thereof. And therefore, the human form of life is referred to as karma yoni. Other creatures, other living creatures, merely enjoy or suffer the consequences of actions performed by them in their previous lives. They are not given the freedom, they cannot taste the fruits of their present actions. Even heavenly gods are not given the right, the freedom to perform kriyaman karma, fruitive actions. Therefore, that form of life is also referred, all other forms of life are referred to as bhog yoni. So therefore, an individual cannot work towards spiritual upliftment, even in heaven. You may have read in the scriptures that Indra, the king of heaven, had once had the opportunity to see God and even speak with him. But he did not benefit in the least from this meeting. We also read in the Vedas that the Supreme Lord appeared before Indra, Agni, Vayu, and so on. But this did not help these heavenly gods spiritually. Why? Because their bodies, being in heaven, their bodies are merely the medium of reaping consequences of past actions, of good actions, of virtuous actions performed by them in their past life. They do not have the right to perform new actions. So it is for this reason that heavenly gods desire the human body. They desire it so that they may also work towards reaching their ultimate aim of God realization. Such is the importance of this human body. We come to the conclusion that we can work towards reaching our ultimate goal of supreme happiness, of God realization, which is another name for God realization, only as a human. So in this respect, man rises above all other living creatures, even gods in heaven. Why? Again, because he alone, among God's children, is given the right to perform karma, fruitive actions. He alone among God's children is given the power to transcend, to cross the limitations of this material world and aim at the highest. Now it depends entirely on him if he takes a spiritual step towards God or the material path downwards to destruction. That is why the Vedas tell us, Ihache dashkat bodham prak sharirasya visrasaha tataha sarveshu lokeshu sharirattvai kalpate. Kathopanishad 2-3-4. The scriptures say, utilize each and every moment of life towards the attainment of your ultimate goal, the ultimate aim. Otherwise, what will happen otherwise? Punarapi jananam पुनरपि मरणं पुनरपि जननी जठरे शयनम् इह संसारे खलदुस्तारे कृपया पाहि मुरारे भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दम्. Tusidas also says, Jo na tarai bhav sagar nar samaj as paai sokrit nindak mandamati atamahan gati jaan. Tusidas says, the individual who, though equipped with the human body, fails to make an attempt to cross the ocean of material existence, such an individual, Tusidaji says, is dull-witted. He lacks intelligence. Atam hanagati pai. And he meets the fate of a self-murderer. Such harsh words used by Tusidaji. Unfortunately, a great majority of us humans are truly slayers of our own souls. Even when we are faced with the most terrible pandemic at the present time, which is sweeping the entire nation, the entire world, and yet we remain careless about our salvation. We live our lives still with mostly our physical welfare in mind, paying little or no attention to our spiritual welfare, to the well-being of the soul. And unfortunately, we have wasted countless lives in this way and will continue to do so unless and until we realize the precious value of this human life. Yudhishthir, as you know, who was the eldest, to give you an example, Yudhishthir, the eldest brother of the Pandavas, was once asked 60 questions by Laksh. And the most important question was, Kim Ashcharyam? He was asked, what is the most surprising fact in the world? And the wise Dharmaraj Yudhishthir replied, Ahanyahani bhutani gachanti yamanaya sheshastratvamichanti kimascharya matah param. Mahabharata. He says that we see our fellow beings dying every moment, going to the abode of Yamaraj, in other words, the god of death, and yet they who are left behind think that they will never die. This is certainly the most surprising fact, bewildering fact, that in the face of death, no one believes that he will die. So, wisdom lies in making a sincere effort to walk on the path of spirituality. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow may not belong to us. We must think in this way. So we should use today to the fullest. Along with realizing the precious value of human life as well as its temporary nature, we must also, the scriptures say that we must also think about, again, the certainty of death. Death is something we are all sure to face sooner or later. No one can escape from the clutches of death. There's a wonderful story in the scriptures which clarifies this point. Once, a man was hiking in the woods when suddenly it became dark. He was walking in the woods and suddenly it became dark and the man decided to leave. But some animals blocked his path. And in trying to get away from them, he penetrated further into the woods. While running, he saw an old woman with arms outstretched as if to embrace him. He ran in the opposite direction. While running, then he stepped onto a grassy patch, which was really a deep pit covered by grass and creepers. His feet became entangled in the creepers and he found himself hanging upside down above the pit. Now there was a snake at the bottom of the pit, waiting for the man to fall so that it may bite him. Two rats were nibbling at the tree which held the creepers. And to make things more complicated, to make things worse, there was a beehive on that tree, and the bees from the beehive started stinging the man on his face. But even in this most uncertain and risky situation, it was seen that the man wore a somewhat happy expression on his face. Why? Because some of the honey from the beehive was slowly trickling onto his lips, and he was finding it very pleasurable. In this pleasure, he had forgotten about the snake, the bees, and the rats. Now you will say that this man is extremely foolish. But the scriptures and the saints, what do they say? They say we are more foolish. Why? You see, first of all, the animals blocking the man's path are diseases that afflict us in life, that become obstacles for us. The old woman symbolizes old age that is waiting to take us in its lap. And the two rats, one black, one white, are likened to day and night that are nibbling away at our life, bringing us closer and closer to death, the time of death. And the snake at the bottom of the pit represents time that wants to devour us in the form of death. And the bees from the beehive signify the endless desires that agitate our mind and keep our mind restless at all times. So imagine what a precarious, what an uncertain situation we are in. And yet the little bit of sense enjoyment we experience in life, that momentary pleasure, makes us so intoxicated that we forget. We forget what a dangerous situation we are in. Hence, Narayan Goswami says to true seekers, he says, "Do baatan ko bhuli mat, jo chahasi kalyan, Narayan ek maut ko, dujo Shri Bhagavan." He says, do not forget two things. What things? Death and God. Death first, God next. Why not God first? Because even if we understand the importance of God, we may procrastinate, thinking we have many years to live. But keeping death in mind at all times will get rid of our tendency to postpone, to procrastinate in devotional practice. And this has been repeated not just by Narayan Goswami, but all saints in all scriptures. The Bhagavad also states, Bhagavad encourages us with the following verse. It says, Labdva sudurlabhamidam bahusambhavante manusyamartadamanityamapi dhira. 11:229 Bhagavad. Or maybe 11:929 Bhagavad. And what does this verse mean? It means though momentary, the human life, although it is temporary, it is transient, it provides a golden opportunity for God realization, to attain, to fulfill the ultimate aim of every individual soul. So to conclude, the human form of life is the most important form of life, and we human beings, the most fortunate of all living beings. Man is greater than all living creatures, even heavenly gods. Because, again, he alone is blessed with the gift of knowledge, Gyan Shakti, and the freedom, the right to perform actions, karma, fruit-yielding actions. And yet the negative aspect of human life is that it is temporary. It can come to an end at any moment. So keeping all this knowledge, everything we talked about, everything I discussed today, keeping this knowledge in mind, we must embrace the path of spirituality with full determination in order to realize God, in order to attain supreme happiness and bring this human form of life to a successful conclusion, to a successful end. So with these words, Bole Vrindavan Bihari Lal Ki, Srimad Sadguru Sarkar Ki. We have a few minutes, so I will chant one hymn. Now follow. Radha 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 जीवन धन राधा 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 श्री राधे जो की शरण ना एक हो बाधा. There's no obstacle in surrendering to the lotus feet of Radha Rani. Radha Krishna are one and the same Supreme Personality of God. Shri Radha jo hai Madhav, Madhav Radha. Shri Radha Rani is Shri Krishna and Shri Krishna is Radha Rani. They are one and the same, and so on. हमारो धन राधा 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 राधा. हमारो धन राधा 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 राधा. हमारो धन राधा राधा राधा. Everyone can sing. It's very simple. हमारो धन राधा 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 हमारो धन राधा राधा हमारो धन राधा 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 हमारो धन राधा राधा राधे कृष्ण राधा कहूँ गाथा हमारो धन राधा राधा राधे कहूँ गाथा हमारो धन राधा 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 हमारो धन राधा राधा राधे 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 ओ राधे राधे श्री राधे 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 everyone can clap their hands ओ राधे 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 please clap your hands राधे 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 ओ श्री राधे 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 ओ श्री राधे 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 ओ राधे राधे श्री राधे 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 ओ कृष्ण नाम राधे गाओ कृष्ण कृष्ण नाम राधे गाओ कृष्ण कृष्ण नाम राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 Radhe Radhe. Radhe 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 Radhe. Radhe Radhe Shri Radhe Radhe Radhe. बोली बरसाने वाली की, श्रीमद सतगुरु सरकार की, जगत गुरु श्री कृपालु महाप्रभु की, लाडली लाल की, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे. Really, thank you so much. Wow, how much we all learned and how much we enjoyed. Thank you so much. I just want to thank Kuran family and Patel family for sponsoring today's puja and Sharma family for bringing me here. It was amazing. Ooh, I'm still don't know where I am. So a few things. I think in the end we will just have one bhajan from Usha Khurana-ji. She sponsored today's prashad. Also, just want to make a few announcements. Next Sunday we have puja, which is sponsored by Veena Anand-ji. We are going to the Father's Day, I guess. Right? But we are also going to pay homage to a couple of people who have passed on. So we will have a little bit of memorial service from them in addition to that. And there will be a talk by Dr. Ramesh Gupta on Journey of Soul. So please do come and join. As you know, the mandir is open. So we like everyone to come to the temple and please be here. Yes, we will keep this Zoom on for a little while longer and then see how things go, and then we will decide accordingly. Please support the temple, become volunteer, tan man dhan. Whatever you can do, please do it. Become members if you are not, so you can get information about our future programs. And I think I will request Usha ji.
Okay. Radhe Radhe.
Usha ji, you can start your bhajan.
Yes,
Yes,
there.
there you are. Thank you so much.
राधे राधे. बहुत सुंदर प्रवचन आपके. मैं जो है एक माता की, क्योंकि जब उन्होंने पूछा था आप कौन सी पूजा करवाएंगे, तो मेरे मुंह से निकला था श्री गणेश जी की और फिर माँ की आशीर्वाद. तो मैं अपना ये भजन जो है माँ की डिस्टर्बेंस आ रही है बहुत. I cannot. Please everybody mute yourself so I can sing. Thank you. सर्वमंगल मांगल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थ साधिके शरण्ये त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणे नमस्तुते नारायणे नमस्तुते नारायणे नमस्तुते. ओम जयंती मंगला काली भद्रकाली कपालिनी दुर्गा क्षमा शिवा धात्री स्वाहा स्वधा नमस्तुते. मन तेरा मंदिर आंखें दिया बाती फोटो की है थालियां फूल फूल भाती रोम रोम जीवा तेरा नाम पुकारती, आरती हो मैया आरती हो, ज्योता वाली माँ तेरी आरती। हे माँ लक्ष्मी गौरी तू अपने आप जोरी, हे महालक्ष्मी गौरी तू अपने आप जोरी, तेरी कीमत तो कहीं पे डिस्टरबेंस बहुत है, तेरी कीमत तू ही जाने, तू बुरा भला पहचाने, ये कहते दिन और रातें तेरी कही न जाए बातें, ये कहते दिन और रातें तेरी लिखी न जाए बातें, कोई माने या ना माने हम भक्त तेरे दीवाने, कोई माने या ना माने हम भक्त तेरे दीवाने, तेरे पाँव सारी दुनिया पखारती, तेरे पाँव सारी दुनिया पखारती, मन तेरा मंदिर आंखें दिया बातें, होठों की है थालियां और फूल बातें, रोम रोम जीवा तेरा नाम आरती, आरती हो मैया आरती हो, ज्योता वाली माँ तेरी आरती। हे गुणवंती सतवंती, हे पतवंती रसवंती, मेरी सुनना ये है विनंती, मेरा चोला रंग बसंती, हे दुख भंजन सुख दाती, हमें सुख देना दिन राती, जो तेरी महिमा गाए वो मांगी मुरादें पाए, जो तेरी महिमा गाए वो मांगी मुरादें पाए, हर आंख तेरी और निहारती, हर आंख तेरी और निहारती, मन तेरा मंदिर आंखें दिया बाती, होठों की है थालियां फूल फूल बाती, रोम रोम जीवा तेरा नाम आरती, आरती हो मैया आरती हो, ज्योता वाली माँ तेरी आरती, हे महाकाली माँ शक्ति हमें दे दे ऐसी भक्ति, हे जग जननी माँ माया है तू ही तू पर छाया, तू अमर अजर अविनाशी, तू अनमिट पूर्ण माशी, सब करके दूर अंधेरे हमें बख्शो नए सवेरे, तू तो भक्तों की बिगड़ी संवारती, तू तो भक्तों की बिगड़ी संवारती, मन तेरा मंदिर आंखें दिया बाती, होठों की है थालियां फूल फूल बाती, रोम रोम जीवा तेरा नाम पुकारती, आरती हो मैया आरती हो, ज्योता वाली माँ तेरी आरती, बोल साचे दरबार की जय, सुचिया ज्योता वाली माता तुम्हारी सदाई जय। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आप सबका।
Thank you, Usha ji. We'll have Aarti now. Everyone, please rise.
सेवन्तिकाकुलचम्पकपाटलाते पुण्यग्रजातिकरवेररसालपुष्पे बिल्वप्रवालतुलसीदलमञ्जरेवे त्वां पूजयामि परमेश्वर मे प्रसीद नानासुगन्धपुष्पाणि यथा कालोद्भवामि च पुष्पाञ्जलिं मया दत्त विहार परमेश्वर ॐ जे तीर्थानि प्रचरन्ति गाहस्ताः दिगङ्गिरः एकाकिं सहस्रयोजने वदन्वाणि तन्मसि यानि कानि च पापानि जनमान्तर्गतानि च तानि सर्वाणि विनश्यन्ति तदक्षिणपदे पदे पापोऽहं पापकर्माहं पापात्मा पापसम्भवा राय मां महागणपति राय मां पुण्डरीकाक्ष सर्वपापहरभव गणेश भगवान की लक्ष्मण भगवान की दुर्गे मात की राधा कृष्ण भगवान की सरस्वती मात की बालाजी भगवान की सियावर रामचंद्र की अयप्पा स्वामी की हनुमान जी महाराज की गौरी शंकर भगवान की कार्तिकेय स्वामी की नवग्रह देव की साईनाथ महाराज की महावीर स्वामी की सतिया जोता वाली माता तेरी सदा ही जय साच दरबार की जय नमः पार्वती पते हर हर महादेव जय जय श्री राधे जय जय श्री राधे जय जय श्री राधे श्याम हरिओम सब लोग आरती लीजिए
सब लोग आरती लेंगे and then they can take prasad from Didi ji. So please do that. Thank you again so much for coming. Yes.